Hi, Dr. Jan. Welcome again to the Be Well Now Method podcast. I am so excited about this topic today.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad to be here. What were you thinking about?
Well, what sparked this topic is our conversation when we were just chatting last time, which is always so much fun. Um, is how you were getting in the car. We were on a call, and you were getting in the car after going to an exercise class, and it was like this aha awareness that I know you've had in the past, but it was just in a reminder, it sounds like, that your core is the center of your strength and it's the center of everything, and how important it is to use your core when you're exercising so it makes it feel so much better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And when you say that, I think of, in particular, because I'm doing strength training or,
Hmm.
focusing on that, um, one of the most helpful things the trainer said to me as I was doing a rowing movement is, something like, "You're using your arms too much. You need to be using your core. And yes, your arms are pulling back, but they're just along for the ride."
Hmm.
And that was a transformative moment. It's like, oh, that everything starts, or it's like, okay, I'm starting with the core. Or
Hmm.
it's almost like what I was saying to you the other day, just this awareness. It really is about our core, our appendages, and our arms and legs are they're kind of along for the ride, or the movement
Hmm.
emanates from the center, the core. And even though it's our arms and legs that are moving, what you don't see is how much the core is initiating that movement, sustaining it, keeping it stable and safe, you know?
Yes.
So it was really helpful to me in my strength training to hear
It's
that.
it's so nice when you have an image in your head that helps your body move better. And
Yes.
as you know, this is such a key part of my program too in the core, but I also this whole person viewpoint of the core. And so the reason why your aha stuck out to me was because at the same time I am writing the chapter in my book based on my program, um, on the core and how it connects to not only strength and how we kind of have a lot of misinformation about core strength, which we'll get into today, but
Yeah.
also how it connects to motivation and how it connects to well-being and overall health and our ability to trust our body.
Yes.
So there's
Yeah.
so much more there, and there's so much more in science about this brain body connection, and especially down through our center.
Yes. And where I would say, another transformative thing, this goes to motivation, is just getting myself to go to the gym and enjoy, want to do that
Mhm.
strength training comes from working with you.
Mhm.
Because again, another, awareness or brainstorm is, and again, this came directly from working with you, is that my mindset in doing strength training, it had a whole lot of intensity,
Mhm.
inner pusher, drive, and that was actually keeping me from showing up.
Mm. Ironic,
And
right?
and on this kind of subliminal level, making it unpleasant.
Yeah.
So isn't it interesting that I'm actually going more now, more
Mhm.
consistent, and getting, I would say, better results, well,
Yeah.
if nothing else, because of the consistency,
Yeah.
because of the motivation,
Yeah.
because I'm making it feel better.
Yes.
That's what would that be? Would that be the well part of Be Well Now?
It would be the whole thing. It's really the whole point of the whole method is to ensure that we're exercising in the well state, not the stress state.
Yes.
And those
Yes.
three steps of Be Well Now ensure that we do that. So why don't we start with a Be Well Now meditation so that we can all kind of start in the well state now,
Yes.
which is just a mindful movement meditation. And if you're not a meditator and you're listening to this, I invite you to maybe kind of get rid of the idea that meditation has to be sitting still, cross-legged on a mat. Um,
Yes.
Mindful movement meditation is a way to experience mindfulness. Um, through your whole body in a way that makes peace with your body. And so this blends movement science, motivation science, and mindfulness in these
Yes.
3 steps of this method. So we start by just putting our body in our natural alignment, and we'll get back. We'll talk more about what this is, but basically it starts with trusting your body, which means put your body in a position that's not good posture or bad posture, but a position that just feels like your bones are holding you and your muscles can just relax, and it just feels the best for you. And I find that it really helps to close your eyes and be able to listen to your body rather than think about how it looks. Think about how it feels. Just notice how it feels and make those little adjustments from your feet to your hips,
Mm-hmm.
in through your ribs, your shoulders, until your head feels weightless and your spine feels really easy. And then you just feel your breath moving in and out. And I encourage you to notice an exhale. If we start with an exhale and just feel that exhale and then feel how the inhale comes back in, we start to get into that flow, that state of noticing that our body is taking care of us. So you're putting your body in this position where it can hold you with ease and trusting what it's telling you about that position. And then you're feeling this automatic process, feeling the exhale, the air moving out, and then feeling how the air just automatically comes back in. And noticing your breath without trying to change it. Just notice how it flows in and out, and it knows exactly the right depth and pace to supply your body with what it needs and to let go of what it needs. And then let that awareness of your breath bring you into your center and feel this center of your body. This is your core, this whole center from your shoulders, top of your shoulders to the bottom of your pelvis or your hips, front and back. Feel this core, the center of your body. Feel how your breath just flows in and out, and your core muscles can relax here. Your back muscles can rest. All the muscles can rest here. And then notice that, right? It just feels good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can notice that there's a whole lot of knowledge in this area in our center, that we know stuff like our gut feelings, our intuition is in this area, our sense of what we care about is in this area. There's so much going on in this area. So just those 2 steps, and then we can kind of finish it out with just a big stretch, just kind of like moving and helping our body clear tension that it's holding from stress, which happens normally. We just tend to accumulate stress tension. And so if we just do a little stretch, that stretch just clears that tension. And then our body can tell our brain, this is a time to heal, to learn, and to grow. And those are the 3 elements of the well state, rather than fight, flee, freeze, which is the stress state. When we're healing, when we're recovering and recharging, and when we're growing and learning, that's the stress state. And that's the state we want to be in when we're exercising, when we're eating, when we're talking to somebody, when we're connecting with other people. This is the well state.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, I want to do one little plug for the moving meditation too.
Mm,
This was an awareness that came to me. Um, yeah, that meditation, one of the things that's so difficult about it is you're supposed to sit there and sit still in a certain position. At least that's the traditional way.
right.
But to really start to expand this idea of moving meditation,
Mm-hmm.
and like I was saying, back to the strength training, and this fits perfectly in with the be well now moment because I'm sitting there, say, at that machine.
Yeah.
And the B part for me is to take a breath in.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
my movement when I'm doing strength training is rhythmic movement
Mm-hmm.
connected by breath, which I
Mm,
got from doing yoga vinyasa
yeah.
originally. But
Yeah.
I bring it into, but it's like, that's why I say, like, my weight workouts are like meditations.
Yeah.
My eyes are closed, inhale, begin, exhale, finish the movement. And then back to what I was just saying, it actually starts in the core. But anyway, this other little interesting thing, uh, you have said before that when your body wants to move, you need to move. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to force it to sit there still, and meditate, it can be really a terrible disconnect. So one of the things that I have always found helpful or calming is writing.
Mm.
So I did a writing meditation. I have this app where you can handwrite on
Okay.
your iPad. So it's
Okay.
very smooth and rhythmic. You can convert it to text if you want, but
Right.
it's like that was my meditation, is that writing, and aware
Yes.
that that is rhythmic. Is that not great?
It's great. And I love how you're expanding this out. Like this is what
Yes.
makes mindfulness work so well because it's portable. And I think the more that we take it into actions, then the more we can use it in moments of our life. Whereas if we're only used to meditating on a mat and then we go off and have a conversation or go do something, it's really hard to transfer that. But if we're used to doing that when we're moving, whether it's small movement of writing or whether it's the bigger movement of strength
Yes.
exercises,
Yes.
everything becomes a practice of mindfulness, and then we just get to stay in the well state more often.
Yes. And I think that's really what your program, your method is bringing in, that that's kind of missing from a lot of meditation information, that
Yeah.
movement can be part of it. You don't have to just sit there. So
Yes.
anyway, I just wanted to throw that in. That's just really just any way that you can move can be meditative, and that may
Yeah.
be more what you need than forcing yourself to try to sit still.
Yes. And especially that forcing yourself, right, causes that
Yes.
disconnection from your body. And you
Yes.
bring up such a great point, Jan, is that in the past, and even when I went to grad school, we were taught that exercise is the stress state. We were taught because the heart rate goes up and the blood pressure
Ah,
goes up. But
yes.
the reasons that your heart rate and your blood pressure and all those changes happen in your body when you're exercising are very different than what happens in a stress state.
Yes. I can
And
see what you mean.
researchers now, when they're studying the vagus nerve that connects to the base of your brain and branches out, it's this huge nerve that branches out through your whole core, from the base of your brain all the way down through your neck, your heart, your digestive system, down into your reproductive organs. Um, that is the nerve that is mostly responsible for the parasympathetic nervous system.
Mhm. Yeah.
And what they find now is that that nerve is very active when you're exercising.
Yeah.
And we
Cool.
used to think it wasn't, right? We used to think that
Yes.
it's the sympathetic nervous system, the stress state, that's
Yeah.
exercising. But now we know that exercise, and again, this depends on how you think of exercise, right? So if
Yeah.
it's like I've got to force my body, I've got to make my body better, my body is a problem, I've got to fix it,
Mhm.
then you're exercising stressed. The
Yes.
reason I call it exercising well is because exercising stressed is not what you and I want to do if we're trying to be healthy. Exercising stressed, athletes probably have to do that. They've got to kind of get that stress state going, that fight, flee, freeze, that kind of like, you know, kind of
Yes.
aggressive piece. You and I just want to be healthy and we want to be in the well state more often, especially when we're moving. So we're practicing being in a well state, even when we're feeling maybe a little elevation of heart rate and blood pressure, even a little muscle tension. We can practice being in the well state so that when we're feel that stress state, it's not perpetuated. We know, okay, I can calm my body down. And even
Yes.
if I'm in a stressful situation, I can stay calm even
Yes.
when I'm feeling this activation of my body. And so I think it takes this mindset shift because there's a lot of still messages out there about exercise being the stress state and it needs to be stressful, left over from athletic mindsets. So there's this mindset that exercise is a stressful event and it has to be stressful. Plus, we
Yes.
use stress to motivate. We
Yes.
use stress, fear of disease to motivate. So there's so much about exercise that's stress practicing. And this
Yeah.
Be Well Now method ensures that exercise, starting with your core and your center and alignment,
And
is in the
that's
well
why
state.
and that's why I say that your method is, it's so subversive.
It is. It's
It's
so sneaky.
radical. It's
It's radical.
revolutionary. It's just really,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because again, when I'm showing up at classes or just anything I do here at home, but particularly in, public places,
Yeah.
a gym or at my an exercise studio, um, the all the pictures are people grunting or grimacing, and I feel kind of I feel subversive when I go to the gym because 'cause I'm doing my stuff. It's working great, but I'm happy, you know? I'm
Stan, how dare you be happy when you're
I know.
exercising?
Yeah, yeah. It's like, and I'll walk by and there'll be some guy, doing something and he has he's straining and it's like I just so want to tap him on the shoulder
Hey, you don't have to
and,
do
and
that.
say you know what? It doesn't have to be this way. And it's not like, hey, I'm glad you're here. You're
Yeah.
doing something, but it's like again, the way I always like to position is I've got something even better.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it's
And I
not like what
love,
you're doing is stupid or wrong.
right.
But
No,
you know what? This is even better
even
because I
better.
show up more.
Yeah. And
I
you
show
take
up
that
more.
you've been able to take that into spaces where I've seen people totally annihilated by exercise, especially people carrying extra weight or in chronic pain who cannot do
Yeah,
everything there and push their bodies to that level. And then they feel like they're not working hard enough. And we've cut those people out of exercise because of this idea. And I love how
yes,
you're taking this method and you're spreading it out just by being there and being relaxed. And you're spreading it
yes,
out through um, showing how you can be relaxed and still be challenging yourself and enjoying that with
yes,
exercising. Yeah.
yes. And I'm very aware when I'm in my exercise classes where there are other people, I'm just very aware. I want to keep a certain softness of
Mm.
what's going on
Yeah.
and to not be working with tension.
Yeah.
Um, but it is, I guess, I like paradox and
Hmm.
counterintuitive. And that's why I
Yeah.
like working with you so much. I think it fits so well with your radical, subversive
Yeah.
approach. Because isn't it funny that I'm going and I'm doing fewer reps
Hmm.
and I'm actually getting better results? One of
Yeah.
the reasons being I'm showing up regularly.
Right. And that's the
Yes,
biggest, hardest part about exercise is doing it consistently.
yes,
Like if we can solve that problem, but it comes from how we're doing it. And you're living proof of that, that when you change how you're doing it and how you're thinking about it, you want to do it.
I want my experience of it to be enjoyable and pleasant. It doesn't mean that
Yeah.
it's necessarily not challenging. I like the
Yeah.
challenge. I
Yeah.
like feeling my heart rate go up.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I'm on my elliptical, for example, I like
Right.
that feeling of
Yeah.
breathing deeply. But it's just such a different way of approaching it. So if you just looked at it in the short run, here's somebody doing fewer reps. It's like, well, that's not good. But if you look at it over the long run, this is somebody that's showing up more often, more consistent, and making it more doable and make motivating and actually getting better results over time. And I know
Yes.
that's not exactly, I want to get back to the core, but
Yeah.
I guess we kind of put it in this container though of, okay, well, if you think about it, when we talk about core work or core strength, usually you immediately tense up or things like grab, you know,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and that's really not what when I was getting given that instruction, start with your core. It's like, I don't want that to be gripping and tense. I just
Hmm.
want it engaged and there for me. It's
Yeah.
working. I feel it supporting me and empowering the movement.
And that gripping intense is just a wake up call. It's just saying, oh, wait, I'm making this stressful. It doesn't have to be. And that's where we go back to alignment. And you mentioned before that, posture, is slumping bad? What's the right way to be? Is it really bad to be slouching? And when we call it good posture, bad posture, it automatically triggers self criticism. It triggers the critical loop, right? Oh, I'm being
Yes.
good or bad. And
Yes.
good and bad is criticism. So now we are in self criticism just by labeling how we're positioning our body as good or bad. So
Yes.
if we do away with the whole good and bad and just realize, you know what, when I'm slouching, when I'm rounded, or when I'm even overcorrecting and trying to pull my shoulders
Mhm.
back, you can just do that right now and feel how it's so much work for our center. It's so
Yes.
much work. And that work signals. Now we know that there's this brain body connection, this gut brain connection, constantly sending information back and forth. And we know from research about posture that being in a slumped posture sends signals of disconnection. It sends signals like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to connect with you. It hides what's inside, all of that. So being in a slump posture, one, makes our body work too hard. It closes off our heart ability to connect, and it sends signals to our brain that there's a problem. And
Hmm.
so it's not that it's bad. It's just that if our intention is to be well now, then the first thing to do is put your body in a position where it can be well by trusting it and getting that brain body connection aligned again and clearing that pathway by just trusting your body, not trying, but just trusting. And
Yes.
that's the first step. And I think that when we talk about the core, we often miss that the first step to having a strong core is being able to stand it or sit in your natural alignment and trust that position.
Yes. And I would say that's still in process for me
Hmm.
because I would still say that in my mind, if I'm sitting here feeling relaxed, oh, then there must be something wrong.
Right?
Or, oh, relaxing means I'm slumping or I'm not engaging my core enough. I'm
Yeah.
relaxing too much. So this is very much still in process for
Hmm.
me. It's wonderful to get to revisit this with you because
Hmm.
this was one of the first things I learned with you. I remember just being just like, really perplexed. It's like, like, wait a minute, because, I come from the world of yoga, standing in
Hmm.
mountain,
Yes.
and you keep doing these little adjustments or whatever to get yourself into that perfect position,
Hmm.
mountain, you know. And well, when I relax, it doesn't feel like mountain. So I must be doing something wrong.
Yes. So the idea of mountain being this thing that your instructor can tell you you're in versus mountain being this state of trusting your body. And I
Yes,
think that's the shift that we need to make. And you talked about this, right? With yoga being the form of yoga where you have to look a perfect, you're supposed to mold your body into the position of the pose
yes,
versus yoga being, oh, what's my body telling me right now? And yoga is supposed to be that connection between your brain and your body, not the connection between your body and your instructor or your brain and
ah,
your instructor, right?
yes.
Or the
Or
form or
your
the
concept,
image.
your
Yeah,
picture
your
in your mind of
concept.
how pose is
Right.
supposed to look or how it's supposed to feel, even.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. And so trust that starting point of being in mountain, which is really, mountains are sturdy on their own base. They're immovable. They can withstand storms. And so we're embodying that quality in ourselves to be strong. And that comes with just being, right? And not having to
yes.
try to fit a mold.
And I would say, the other thing that's been, one of the gifts of this concept of core, of course, we always think immediately our abs
Hmm.
when you think
Yes.
core.
Yep.
But again, and this is, still something in process, but again, when I'm activating those muscles, whether it's whatever movement I'm doing, whether it's in Pilates, a reformer, or a weight machine, or just doing
Hmm.
some yoga on my own, but it's like when I say it starts in the core, my awareness that it's actually starting in your pelvic floor,
Yes.
not just your belly,
Absolutely.
but it
No.
initiates in your core. And so whether I'm doing a crunch or a bridge or whatever, it's just totally transformed the way that I engage my core
Mhm.
because of that awareness.
Yes. And it's so true. And I think we have a lot of information about the pelvic floor, and it's not even getting enough research and information. And so many people struggle with pelvic floor weakness, and we think it's supposed to get, weaker as
Yeah,
we get older. And I did a YouTube video on it. I'll link in the show notes about, but our pelvic floor, and I just had somebody who's doing a free trial of my program message me, what am I supposed to be doing here again? Like it's such a hard concept. We're so disconnected from it, and to think about like it's stopping the flow of urine or bowel movement, and that it's that whole bottom of the core, but also it's our
yeah,
gluteal muscles. But if we pull up from our pelvic floor in that way and engage those muscles on the bottom of our pelvis, then the core muscles naturally engage because they're supposed to be working together. If we do it
yes,
separately, then we don't, the pelvic floor doesn't know it's part of the core, and then we sneeze, core contracts, pelvic floor lets go. So, you're doing exactly what we're supposed to do for the pelvic floor, which is incorporate it.
yes. and how much, how much it's a part of our core strength, and
Yeah.
but there's just not much focus on it, or the confusion.
Hmm.
And I've been fortunate to discover a a Pilates and physical therapist
Yeah.
instructor that I worked, and I feel like I now know
Nice.
how to engage pelvic floor muscles, and I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And her, disseminating this information, that what the research shows is it's not stopping the flow of urine, that we engage the wrong muscles when you think
Mm.
that. And
Mm.
these little techniques that are simple,
Yeah.
and the important thing, though, and this is where your method comes in, it's not just doing these contractions, but it's integrating them into movement.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
that, so when that starts, and granted, you may have to just learn how to operate the muscles without making it too complicated. Just
Yeah.
lie there on your back, and
Right.
practice this, or whatever position you're in. But where you want to move as soon as possible is integrating it into movement, not just doing little isolated, you know, exercises.
I'm so glad you said that. And I'd love to have her on the podcast to have a conversation about how to talk about the pelvic floor in a way that
Yes,
helps people make that brain body connection. That's muscle memory, because we really are lacking good information about how to do it. But then also, like you said, how to integrate it into movement so that we have a strong base as we're
yes,
moving of our
yes,
center, of our core. And it connects with balance, it connects with so much. So,
yes.
yeah.
And just to, I guess just put out there how we learn as we go. But
Mm,
I've followed her for a number of years, or seen, and originally it was like stop the flow of urine. She doesn't
yeah.
even say that anymore.
Yeah.
And she's
Yeah.
saying this has been disproved completely.
Mhm. Yeah.
And there's just these little simple techniques to do. And her
Great.
delivery of it has gotten more and more concise and
Yeah.
clear and approachable.
Yeah.
Uh, so, yeah, that would probably be a great podcast in and of its own, because
Yes.
I just don't hear people talk about it much, or there's just not much, and it's so needed.
It's so
So,
needed. Yes,
yes,
that's great. And I'm so glad you said it, because you're right. Somebody who just focuses on that, and really um, has curated that way of teaching, that is so, this is why we need a team. We need different experts coming in. We need as many people who focus on different parts of the body and integrating them
yeah,
as possible. Um, and then following that up so that as you use your pelvic floor as the base, and then you know all the other muscles that are involved, your transverse, your obliques. The problem is that we've separated these muscles and we have like side crunches to work obliques, but the obliques job is not really rotation. That's its secondary job. Its job is
mhm,
stabilization. So the idea of crunches and obliques kind of came from this marketing messaging that
yeah,
core exercises create a flat core, a flat stomach. And it's not
yeah,
true. It's not how our body works. And it's not how our core works. So
yeah,
we have this whole group of exercises that ask our core to do things that they're not meant to do. And I think based on, all of this reading about the vagus nerve and the brain gut connection and interoception and this activation of the core muscles, how it stimulates the adrenal medulla, all of that connection, that if we're misusing our core, then what is that
mhm,
doing to our ability to relax?
yes. And here's where an unusual aspect of the relax comes in. If I go back to,
Yeah.
it's really about your core. That's where it starts. That's the
Hmm.
core of the movement.
Yeah.
Um, your arms and legs are along for the ride. That means your arms and legs can relax and not overwork, not try
Right.
to do. And again, if I go back to the pelvic floor, what I'm so enchanted with is that when I engage those muscles, I'm not using just my abs either.
Right.
No,
Right.
it's like, no, this it's very coordinated.
Yes.
It feels wonderful.
It's the
But
way we're supposed to move.
yes, yes. So it's certainly more of a whole body
Hmm.
engagement,
Yeah.
also which what I've learned from you, but how much more strength I have. So I can now use my arms. I'm not overworking, I'm not tensing up, I'm not injuring myself. It makes it easier and more effective.
Hmm.
but it just the whole thing feels wonderful.
Yeah. And the reason is if we could, it's how we're hardwired. It's if you look at a baby developing, this is how they move. So we're really just getting back to how we're wired to move well. And it feels really good because what your core is supposed to do is stabilize your pelvis and your rib cage in that alignment so that your spine stays in its natural alignment. When your spine's out of alignment, then your shoulders and your hips are also out of alignment. And then your elbows and your knees and your ankles and your hands and your neck and everything on out is out of alignment. But when your core is holding you in its natural alignment, in that strongest position, then every other joint is also in its strongest position. So it's really
Yeah.
mechanics and physics. But the nice thing about the core is that you can be out of alignment. It's the reason dancers can do all these amazing moves is because we have core muscles, not a core bone. And
Uh-huh.
so our core can then be strong outside of those ranges of alignment, which is then the next place
Mhm.
to take that. Can I bend over and use my core even when I'm out of alignment? We're not going to be as strong in that position. So we don't want to lift heavy
Mhm.
weights in that rounded position.
Mhm.
But there's some people who, practice that. And I think that that's where mobility and strength go hand in hand. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
they're both needed. They complement
Yes.
each other so nicely.
Yes. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, which is why yoga is so nice because and just stretching, not even just yoga, but it allows us to be strong because when we're stretching, our muscles are tensing and they're creating strength in full ranges of motion at a light level, not to mention releasing tension. But that even those movements come from our core. If we start in alignment, core support, and then hinge, which is the three steps of the Be Well Now method embodied,
Mhm.
then we're starting every movement in the natural way we're supposed to move. And movement just feels good. And then you want to do it, like you already pointed
Yes.
out. Yeah.
Yes. So it's really taking that whole concept of wanting to feel relaxed or like, the in Pilates, it's called soft knees,
Hmm.
but that to always have I'm always looking to have an element of softness
Mm.
or and relaxation might be another way of as I'm doing any strength move,
Yeah.
I want it there's kind of a quietness or a
Mm.
softness to it,
Mm. Yeah.
and it's really it feels beautiful.
Yeah. Would you say that that softness comes from presence?
Uh, it's certainly being mindful about,
Okay.
"This is
Yeah.
what I want. It is my
Okay.
intention
So
that
very
I"
intentional.
yes, that when I'm
Yeah.
doing it, I wanna feel strong, I wanna feel the mobility, say if I'm doing arm circles or leg
Hmm.
circles or something, that requires strength and mobility, but I want that kind of softness or smoothness to it.
Mm.
Um, I don't want there to be a lot of tension and, stress,
Yeah.
yes. So, yes, it is certainly being more present for sure.
Yeah. Which you're also bringing up the other piece of the core that's beyond core strength. It's having a very healthy connection to our core, not in the way we think of that it looks or even like measured in strength of how many sit ups or how long you can plank for, but in strength is how you can activate it and use it like we just described, but then also that connection to what you know in your center, in that second brain, that we know our gut is constantly communicating to our brain and our brain to our gut, that they're finding that IBS and gut issues are often linked to depression, but they're finding that it's a two-way street. It's not that people have IBS and then become depressed. It could be that they have
Yes,
depression and then it's IBS, and it's a two-way
yes,
street. And
yes,
so that brain body connection is really interesting uh, to think about. But then also that sense of interoception, what we know in our center, that sense of what we value, what we intuitively know in our body that nobody else can tell us,
yeah,
and having a connection to that center, that second brain, that intuition is what you just talked about, that intentionality of exercise. My intention is to be kind to my body, to take care of it, to move it well, not to beat it up.
yes, yes. So if I start feeling too much tension, I'm looking for ways to let that go, however that takes. And there was something else I was going to say about that. Oh, yes. that just staying aware
Mm.
it's what helps me know my limits.
Hmm.
That if I'm in a class, for example, and it's like, it's time for me to go ahead and stop now
Yeah.
and or start moving out of this position and maybe I'll do something else or but it to certainly let it be okay. That is so anti-pusher.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh. And yeah. And so anti-strength training, right? How many times do you hear just lift weights while you're watching TV,
yes.
or in a
Or,
class,
or,
people
oh,
just
just
throwing those weights
5
around,
more,
pushing. Yeah.
5 more,
5 more.
and
Right.
do it harder these last
Yes.
5, go further.
Right.
Or,
Yes.
it's like, yes, it's very much the antithesis of that,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, but it's been so helpful to
Hmm.
me,
Yeah.
because number 1, it's pleasant. I wanna come back,
Yeah.
because I didn't make it hurt or feel bad.
Yeah.
Plus, there's less chance that I injured myself
Hmm.
from trying to do too much or go too
Right.
far.
Right.
So it's just kinda like, what's not to like?
It's a win-win to stay present because you're practicing mindfulness. You're connecting to your body, moving it better and practicing moving better so it has better transfer to everyday life. And you are able to meet yourself where you are. So you get the most personalized, workout or exercise session possible that no trainer or nobody, no
Yes,
professional could tell you. I don't care who has a PhD in exercise physiology, could not tell you what's just right for your body. They could
yes.
give you general amounts, but only when your body is saying, okay, that's enough.
Yeah, that certainly is a trust of learning to,
Yes.
read it, pause, be aware, read it and respond to it. And again, back to that intentionality of this is what I'm looking for,
Yeah.
and really it seems to me that people who, like you were talking about dancers and moving out of position, if we're challenging ourselves, there's something about doing it in a way, though, that's what makes dance look so beautiful, is
Yes.
that you're in your whole body,
Yeah.
from the top of your head through the tips of your fingers or
Hmm.
whatever that extension is. Uh, but there's a softness to it or a
Hmm.
smooth, it doesn't look like, or at least it seems like when it's done well,
Hmm.
it's just beautiful to
Yes.
watch. That's why we're
Yeah.
so drawn into it.
Right. And I think anybody, right, and dancers or anybody that you're watching, you can tell when people are very comfortable in their body.
Yes.
If someone's walking down the street or, watching my daughter's soccer games, I can tell which kids are very in tune with their body and which ones are kind of more unsure,
Yes.
not trusting. And I think you hit the nail on the head with trusting, which in fact is that the mindset that's in the Be Well Now method is trust. And that's what we connect with this core connection is
Yes.
embodied trust, trusting what's
Yes.
here now, trusting what your body's telling you right now, what you know in your center. That's embodied trust. That's a huge mindset to have.
Yes, yes, and if I can draw intuitive eating into this just for a
Oh,
moment, when I
please.
was listening to a talk at one of the medical conferences I was at, the speaker was a registered dietitian who practices intuitive eating, and one of the things I was truly inspired by wasn't just by everything she said, which was fabulous,
Yeah.
but just the way she stood and she presented
Mm,
herself. There was just this relaxed quality
yeah.
that was just inspiring. It's like,
Right.
"Oh, I like that, and
Yeah.
I wanna give myself permission to
Mm,
stand or move that." And here's what it translates to, and I think this is a great message for women in particular, and especially me coming from corporate America,
mhm.
and, being a woman in corporate America, for 20 years, and then working with primarily with executives and professionals,
Mhm.
is for women how much stiffness we have in our upper body, and we think that we're being strong or, resolute or whatever, but it actually makes you look kind of brittle and tense and weak. And there's something about being able to let your shoulders move as you're
Mm,
walking or standing, or just that certain relaxed confidence. And it's not mountain, you know,
yeah.
but it's there's just something extremely attractive about it that I'm
Yeah.
just enjoying, and again, this comes really where it really started was working with you and that, "Oh, you mean I'm not supposed to stand in mountain? I'm just supposed to stand here?" And it's like, "Well, what if it's not right?" And it's like,
Yeah.
"Well, if it's feeling relaxed, Jan, it probably is right."
What a concept.
Yeah.
I know. Get rid of all those shoulds. Yeah, I
Yes.
love how you pulled in eating because it's so true. I was thinking recently how both eating and exercising, and they're so key to our health and all these messages that we get about them, but they're both an opportunity to either disconnect from or connect with our body. There are moments in our day that are opportunities to practice disconnecting from our body through eating mindlessly or, you know, fighting cravings and all those things that make eating stressful, or eating mindfully and intuitively, where you're listening to your body and really saying, okay, yeah, nope, that's what I want. And oh, yeah, that's enough. And that, that practice, if every time we eat, I've been sitting out on my back porch and just sitting and looking at nature and really eating as an experience of mindfulness lately. And I notice how it carries through. I come away from eating so much more calm and happier and feeling
Yes.
fulfilled and even giving gratitude for the food and where it came from. And, having this whole person experience with eating is very different than like eating my healthy breakfast fast and checking off, okay, great, I had spinach in my eggs today, check, I got protein and vegetables.
Hmm.
And it's a
Hmm.
very different mindset, but that carries over. And same thing with exercise. If we're doing it mindfully with presence as an act of care, it can be a moment to
Yes.
connect with our body. And the more connected we are, yeah, if we go into stressful situations like working in an office, we can carry ourselves with this presence and what Amy Cuddy
Yes.
calls presence, which is connection to your strengths and your
Yes.
best self and bringing that forward. That's presence.
When that element of relaxation comes in, it to me, what it translates to, it is incredibly powerful.
Mm, it
It is
is.
really
Right.
powerful. If you
Yeah.
wanna be your most effective or your most powerful,
Yeah.
there's going to be an element of relaxation there,
Yeah.
not total tensed up like you're ready, for battle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, yes, so that might be something we wanna talk about in another podcast is this connection with intuitive eating. The last
Hmm.
thing I'd like to toss in about it today, though, is you were talking about the way that you're doing it, sitting out on your porch and,
Yeah.
just feeling more peaceful when you're
Yeah.
finished, and also how much better the food tastes,
Oh, so much
how
better.
much more enjoyable it is. So
Yeah.
back to the stress state, if you're trying to eat mindfully and it's stressing you out,
Yeah.
there's this huge difference between eating
Hmm.
like that and trying to
Yes.
be, "Okay, put your fork down. Okay,
Right.
and chew it all up, then don't swallow yet. Well, no, no." It just takes all
Yeah.
the joy out of it.
Right.
It's not helping. So there's
Yes.
this way of eating to where it tastes, and if you know what? If it doesn't taste good, then you need to be getting something else.
Yes, you get to listen and trust your body. And that,
Yes.
I think when
Yes.
you say relaxed, I think of it as this, not relaxed like laying on a beach, but relaxed in that calm presence. And that is an
Yes.
embodied trust. That's an embodied in, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yes,
You
maybe
know?
there's a better word than
Yeah.
relaxed,
Yeah.
because that does it's kinda get kinda like things like you're just lying there and you're not
Right.
paying attention and you're slumped. So
Yeah.
maybe present is just a good word, but it
Right.
does incorporate that feeling. We'll have to think about that. That's gonna
I
be
know.
something to come up.
Yes, that
How
is
do you better describe that so people get it? Or like I
right.
was saying earlier, this is still a process of understanding, "Oh, mountain is really not what I'm going for here."
Mm. For
It's
you. Yeah. The way you think of mountain has been trained for that.
yes,
And I think this is really individual, and I would challenge our listeners, and even put it in the comments. What would you call it when you are feeling
yes,
embodied presence, confident, trusting? You're in your body in a way that feels like home, that feels like I'm okay to be here.
yes,
Like really being able to be in your body and sense and trust what it's telling you. We might all have a different word for that. It might have a very different look and feel and name for each
yeah,
one of us, but only we know when we're there.
yeah, yeah,
And it does start with this connection between the brain in our head and the brains in our center, our heart brain and our gut brain. And that does fan out to, how do I embody that strength in my center without triggering a stress state, but with staying in that relaxed trusting? Which is
Yes.
why, we can bring that full circle, which is why I like starting in alignment and dialing it up from your pelvic floor, because if you engage your core from your pelvic floor, you're less likely to interrupt your breath
Mhm.
versus sucking it in and then you're holding your breath. So
Yes.
that adding that pelvic floor adds that nice, easy way of engaging your core too.
Yes, you're exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So much here in the center of our being, of our body, that is so much beyond six pack abs and how long you can plank for.
Oh,
So much that is a gateway, right? Really, a doorway, a pathway, a opening to um, what we're all really, I think, seeking, which is to just feel good in our body, to be at home and be
you know
at
what it
peace.
is? It's
What?
it's like I love the way you put it the other day. The Peace Corps.
The Peace Corps, right? That's right.
It's like, I wanna join the Peace Corps.
Join the Peace Corps.
I wanna have a corps, and I want to be I want it to feel peaceful, and it's not, checked
Right?
out or,
No.
not doing its job, but
Yes.
it's peaceful.
Yes.
Yes.
This
So,
Peace
yes,
Corps,
I want
having
to join the
peace
Peace
right in your core, right in your center. Let's join the Peace Corps. Thank you
Yeah,
for remembering that, because we
yeah,
laughed really hard when we came up with it.
yeah, that was so much fun. Okay,
Great. Well, Dr. Jan, thank you so much. This is just, you from the head and me from the body, and just this connection that we have, the
yes,
brain body connection is um, bringing it to life. And I
yeah.
really appreciate what you add to
Yes,
this.
it's so much fun, and I'm so enjoying sharing, what I'm learning,
Mm,
and it's reinforcing it. So I can't wait for our next podcast.
me too. Take care.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.